All right, hello Ledesma. I'm gonna give you my first video on quadrilaterals. Okay, so this is a review video for my class, but anyone else who wants to watch it is perfectly welcome to. So first of all, we talk about quadrilaterals, and a quadrilateral is any four-sided shape, right? It's any four-sided shape is a quadrilateral. Okay, and you can see I drew all kinds of quadrilaterals on this page. You could also call it a four-sided polygon. That's a quadrilateral. So um, that's what this lesson is going to be about. The first type of quadrilateral that we're going to discuss right here is a trapezoid, right? Now, a trapezoid has one pair of parallel lines, and there's two different definitions of it. The inclusive definition includes anything with at least one pair of parallel lines, and the exclusive definition says it can only have one pair of parallel lines. For the most part, we're going to use the inclusive definition of a trapezoid. And so what you can see, this is a standard trapezoid here. This line is parallel to that line. This is what most people think of with trapezoids. But over here, this is also a trapezoid because this line is parallel to that line. All right, and sometimes you will see parallel lines noted with little marks along it, little arrows going in the same direction. So I'll mark this one up, and you can see now that those arrows going in the same direction show that those are parallel lines. So these are trapezoids. Okay, moving on from trapezoids, we have the next thing, which is a parallelogram. And of course, the root word of that is parallel, right? Opposite sides are parallel and congruent. Okay, and then opposite angles are also congruent. Okay, so the top and bottom sides, they are parallel to each other, and they are congruent, which means the same size, right? And then this side and that side are also parallel and congruent. A lot of times you'll see them marked with little tick marks like this, right? And I'll show you in a second here. So I put little tick marks on that. It shows you this side is congruent to that side, and this side is congruent to that side. And you can also use that parallel marker on a parallelogram as well. So a parallelogram. Now I'm going to show you a special type of a parallelogram, and this special type of a parallelogram is known as a rectangle. Now a rectangle is a shape you've known about for a long time, but it's a parallelogram with four right angles. Other than that, it's exactly like a parallelogram. It's just a special parallelogram where all of the angles are 90 degrees. So that's a rectangle. It's a type of a parallelogram. It's a special one. And here's another type of a special parallelogram. This is a rhombus, right? And a rhombus is simply a parallelogram with four congruent sides. That means all of the sides are exactly the same length on a rhombus. Other than that, it's exactly like a parallelogram. So a rhombus is a type of a parallelogram, just like a rectangle is, right? And there are different types of parallelograms, but that's what a rhombus is. Okay, so now we're going to go to something that's sort of a combination of a rectangle and a rhombus, and I'm wondering if you can figure out what that is. If you guessed that it is a square, you are correct. Now, we've known about squares probably since preschool, but we now need to analyze them geometrically. So a square is a parallelogram with four right angles and four congruent sides, right? So you can see the little right angle markers in this one and the little tick marks, which means all of those are congruent. And you can see that this is also this one here also happens to be a square, even though it's crooked. But if you turn it like that, now it looks a little less crooked, right? So it doesn't matter which angle you turn a square at, it's still a square if it meets the definition of a square. So a square is a type of a rhombus because it has four congruent sides. It's a type of rectangle because it has four right angles. It's a type of a parallelogram because opposite sides are parallel, right? And if you use the inclusive definition of a trapezoid, it is also a type of a trapezoid because it has at least one pair of parallel lines. So a square is a lot of things. And there is one special quadrilateral we're going to go up to. It's actually my favorite. It's a geometric shape called a kite. Now, you think of a kite as one that you would fly in the great outdoors. So do I. I like doing that. But a kite it's a quadrilateral where adjacent angles, or I'm sorry, let me say that again. Adjacent sides are congruent. So on this kite, this side here is adjacent to that side. That means they're connected. They're right next to each other. And these two are congruent. And down here, these two sides are congruent. So that is a kite, right? This kite, these two sides are congruent, and these two sides are congruent. So adjacent sides are congruent on a kite. A kite is not a parallelogram necessarily. Usually it isn't. But it can be other things. If you take a look at this square, and I want you to think for a second, is a square a kite? And the answer to that is yes, because adjacent sides on the square are congruent, right? So I bet if you think back through the other shapes I've showed you, you could come up with another one that also is a kite as well. So think about that. We'll go back to quadrilaterals here, and we've learned quite a bit about them. Again, polygons with 4 sides on them, right? The root of the word quadrilateral is quad, right? And it literally means 4, right? Just like the root of the word triangle is 3, and tri literally means 3. So that's a little lesson on quadrilaterals. I hope you study more on it. I hope you practice. I hope you learn more, and I will put out more videos about that coming up.